I'm also a lecturer at the University of Brighton, and these are my two best students over there. And they're going to be talking about their journey from since they left school in a very not typical way of how they're going to end up with CNH. And I have no doubt they will do it. I won't tell you more because they'll tell you the story themselves.
So good evening everyone, and welcome to this presentation about alternative routes to becoming a chartered engineer. If there's just one thing you need to take away from this presentation, is simply just this. In order to become a chartered engineer, you have to tick a certain amount of boxes. But some of the things the IET look for is they look for your credentials, they look for the journey that you've taken to become an engineer just in general across your academic and professional life, and the roles and responsibilities that you've had in your profession, primarily in engineering positions. By becoming a chartered engineer, you can normally see higher salaries, professional recognition, and a greater probability of attaining a job. So to those of you who do not know me, my name is Jack Elliott. I have worked in the engineering industry for 5.5 years. I'm currently an engineering consultant. I'm currently studying my Masters of Science in Engineering Management, but I've been in academics for 8 years. A combination of those two things is I have a lot of specialisation and skills that makes me unique in my industry and my trade.
And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jack Pettit. I'm an industrial automations engineer for the company Nature's Way Foods. I also have 5.5 years of industry experience, and I'm also studying my MSc in engineering management. And similar to Jack, in my own specialised field, I've gained loads of skills and experience over the 5.5 years and 8 years of my academic experience. That does also set me aside from other people within the industry.
So I started my engineering journey all the way back when I was 16. I actually was a bit of a strange person at 16 in terms of I finished high school with just GCSEs. I wasn't overly brilliantly academic. Most of my GCSEs are sort of mids to subpar, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. In my brain at that time, a job is a job, money is money. I don't particularly know any career or field that I want to go into. And so for 3 years, up until the age of 19, I middled around a bit. I did quite a few jobs here and there, but I got a job at a company called Eurotherm, where I did assembly engineering, where I discovered I had a love for electrical and electronics, and this was the first time this ever happened for me. I was there for 2 years, up until the age of 21, where I decided that actually I want to go back and I want to learn college, which would have been unthinkable to me at 16. I didn't want to do any more education, but I did decide to go back, where I would study electrical and electronic engineering. I was primarily really only interested in the level 3 qualifications at that point. I wasn't 100% certain I'd even finish my level 3s because, again, I didn't have the great academic history. After 2 years, I finished my level 3s and I thought, well, I've got a choice here. I can either go the vocational route and go into higher nationals, or I can go to university. And between you and me, I was terrified of university. I hate exams, which is ironic for us now, but here we are. Did a higher national certificate. Did very well in it. I thought, right, well, I'll go to the next stage, I'll do a H&D. But that's always still lingering in your brain. Do a higher national diploma level 5. The next step is a level 6, which is normally a bachelor's degree at a university. During that time, I searched for more of a media engineering position, so that middle tier, slightly lower than a senior, but higher than a junior position. I finished my H&D, and during that time, I also became a calibrations engineer for a company called Hi-Tech. I then started at the University of Brighton in my Bachelor's of Science, and I became an engineering operations manager for the same company. I then jumped because I had to do quite a lot of travelling around sites, and when you're trying to go to university for 2 days a week and travelling around to Scotland and Wales, it's very exhausting, so I thought I'd centre myself more locally, where I got a job as a multi-departmental engineer for a company called Fermionics, which is where I currently am now. I finished my Bachelor's with a first-class honours, which again, a 16-year-old me would never ever have thought I could have ever done, and started the Masters of Science, and I'm also now the current engineering consultant for said company at Fermionics. In 12 years, which is not a long time in the grand screen, but almost feels like yesterday if I'm honest, I had no real qualifications to speak of, no real career goals, no real ambitions or motivations, and 12 years later I've achieved quite a lot in my 12-year period.
Similar to Jack, when I left school at 16, I didn't have much in the way of GCSEs. I had about the same as Jack, about medium level or around C's and some above. I left school with, again, no real career aspirations or goals. Currently I was working at Butlins, which I would stay for the next remainder of 4 years, and I was looking at either two routes for myself. I had two options for electrical installations courses, and I also had the electrical and electronic engineering course, which kind of pushed from with my dad. I made that decision and planned to go to electronic and electrical engineering, which for me was the correct decision to make. At 17, I started the course, thrilled and very much allocated with me, and my current career path was what I wanted to go into. And at the end, I did a work placement at a company called Electrical Thermal Instruments, as I wanted to get embedded quickly into the industry, as I knew my academia wasn't going to be enough to succeed me into a job later on. Which was true, and I really loved the time at ETI. So at 18, when I was looking at my high nationals, H&D and H&D, I was also looking at bachelor's degrees as well, or foundation degrees, as I went to a Brighton open day. And again, similar to Jack, very intimidated when looking at the facilities, the lecturers and lecturing halls in comparison to the higher national and the same laboratory that I've been in doing my level 3s. You know, it was kind of a known done deal then, and also it allowed me to work alongside it, which I was currently at the time. So I chose to do my H&C, and in that time I was able to do a industry placement at a company called Nature's Way Foods, where I spent 1.5 years as a multi-skilled engineer, almost an apprentice, but not learning valuable skills that would then benefit me later on. Then it cuts to 21, where I completed my H&D in EEE. I had at that point been fully employed by the company Nature's Way Foods for a year at that point, and then further progressed in my professional career, and knowing full well that, similar to Jack, the sight of a university was imminent. But at 22, after going to loads of open university days, we found that university could actually be a viable and feasible option for us. So we made the plunge when we went, and it was very beneficial to us, coming out with a first class of honours, which again, like Jack, 16-year-old me would have never have believed in his life. However, it was attainable, and also while working alongside it, which again given me valuable experience alongside it. Then at 23, I'm still currently employed as a multi-skilled engineer by Nature's Way Foods, while also progressing through to my Masters in Engineering Management. And recently, at 23, I've been promoted from Industrial Automations Engineer, a multi-skilled engineer, to an Industrial Automation Project Engineer. So from my 7-year journey from 16 to 23, I went from no real career path, no higher academics, and no real specified skill set, to now being a senior level engineer with ongoing MSc to a first BSc, H&D and H&C, while also having specialised skill sets to my name and a portfolio that represents that.
So I work for a company called Fermionics, which is based in the industrial estate close to East Worthing Station. We're a PCB and electronics manufacturing company, primarily specialising in SMT, so surface mount technology, and THT, which is through hole technology. We operate in a variety of industries, but some of the key ones are aerospace, automotive and military.
And as previously stated, I work for a company called Nature's Way Foods. It was founded in 1994, has around 17 clients with 1,300 full-time employees. We are a food manufacturing, or a salad leaf-based food manufacturing company and processing company. And as from the company values, we aspire for quality, value and service to our end clientele.
So one of the key things I said in the first opening in the executive summary is that one of the things the IET looks for is your engineering journey, how you started to where you currently are. And as for a lot of us, we have quite a lot probably of roles and experiences in that time. For myself, I'm currently an engineering consultant, so I mainly provide technical advice and technical solutions for customers as well as internal members of my own company. Before that, I was a multi-departmental engineer, so I did manufacturing, production, quality, test and technology applications. So that involved everything from X-ray to AOI, automated optical inspection units, testing obviously units before they go out the door to make sure they conform to any sort of IPC standards. So anything that basically along the line of to make sure that the product leaves the factory conforming to all its international standards. As an engineering operations manager, which was my first proper senior position at the time, I led a small team of calibrations engineers. I was trusted more with the financial and sort of the monetary funds of a business. And I also helped train some of the up-and-coming calibration engineers into more specialisations for things such as high voltage, high current and radio frequency operations. But I started before that as a calibrations engineer, where I travelled around the country. I did a lot of repair, test and calibrations for a lot of customers. I've been up through all the way up into the Highlands, Scotland, Wales, the Isle of Wight, so I got to meet quite a lot of companies, quite a lot of people, and mainly quite a lot of engineers. And I started my engineering journey all those years ago at Eurotherm, which is located in Durrington, mainly in assembly. So I used to do kit building, programming and testing for the 32 series of temperature controllers, as well as help provide some of the operational processes and make them a bit more streamlined and a bit easier.
My current roles and responsibilities at Nature's Way Foods, an industrial automation engineer and project engineer. From the left there you can see, although I'm a multi-skill engineer, that my main role is rectification and fault finding machine breakdowns and automated machines that the factory is currently processing all the products with. On the far left you can see that we also do projects as an additional responsibility here at the company. You can see that's a brand new automated control panel that was designed by one of my colleagues that when I first joined was brought in to do some of the field wiring and some of the minor control wiring to finalise the project and integrate it into the business. However, in the centre screen there you can see one of our machines that is a cook quench tool, one of our automated cooking machines, and that perfectly demonstrates some of the multidisciplinary engineering that you will encounter as a multi-skill engineer in a food manufacturing company, ranging from mechanical to electrical, from 3-phase powered single phase to 24-volt control circuits and latching relays, all the way to refrigeration, chemical and pneumatic and hydraulic systems. As well, on the right you can see the panel that is used to control the CQC, the automated cooking machine, and you can see the integrated PLC controllers that are used in modern technology that has to be fault found and schematics when you are fault finding and completing rectification work. Furthering from some of the projects that you will encounter as a multi-skill engineer, this is a project that was displayed to me a year ago as a means to process some of the current products that we've currently got instead of buying them in. We've got a 1-month time deadline to achieve this product, and you can see how it incorporates both metal and fabrication works and mechanical engineering, as well as electrical and electronic control theory to produce a final end product. Some of the pictures here are from our new automation line here at Nature's Way Foods. So you've got the automated peg and chain line all the way to the automated Yamato weigh scales that automatically weigh individual produce, dropping it down into a punnet or a pot before going down to the automation line and being ready for sealing. This is one of the many strides as an engineering student and graduate student moving up that is very valuable to new engineers to be able to work on, understand and also modify moving forward. As an automation project engineer, I'll be more focused on projects such as these, looking at new automated solutions moving forward with the business and company, while also looking at the integration system and operating things such as Lean Six Sigma to ensure that you've got the most and efficiency and effectiveness out of a given line.
So over the years I've had the great pleasure of working alongside quite a few companies. Some of the more prestigious ones I've put up on display for you. Some of my personal favourites are BMW, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, NASA, the NHS. Obviously I attended quite a lot of customer sites, so I met lots of engineers in the field in different places. I've also been involved in majority, if not most, of the major sectors, aerospace, energy and power, industrial manufacturing, marine, military. So all those things you get mainly from being in the industry, as you'll very much probably well know, and all the services from it.
Within my company, we manufacture and produce products for a load of big name companies such as McDonald's, Sainsbury's and Tesco's. However, when making this presentation, a very good point was made by my lecturer, Dr. Gill, that when you compare mine and Jack's workplaces in manufacturing, we're very similar but also worlds apart. You would never look at my company in its current standing and see it as a engineering demanding business or company. However, when creating automated solutions for these businesses, we work with such companies such as Projects, Blackrow, Protec, as well as automated solution manufacturing companies such as KUKA and Universal Robots that provide all the robotics and articulated robotic arms for all of our new automated processes moving forward.
So the IET It stands for the Institution of Engineering and Technology, and it is a global community that is primarily a non-profit organisation in which it provides resources, career mentoring, and also allocates what's known as designations based off of the criteria such as CEng and IEng.
Because that many benefits arise from joining the IET, such as global networking, as it's recognised globally, heavily discounted and free courses provided on behalf of the IET, and the ability for career development and professional growth through such means as engineering mentorships.
Yep, the IET has several types of memberships, ranging from what's known as an MIET, both of which we are, which is a member of the Institution of Engineering and Technology. You have a TMIT. I'm not going to say IET every single time, we'll be here forever. So it's just technician membership. You've got FIET, which is fellow. You have student and you have associate.
However, with that do come some membership costs, such as an FIET is around £235. A IEng or MIET is around £200. However, if you're a recent graduate student, it's heavily discounted to around £20, which both myself and Jack have made great use of. And for a student, it is around £35.
So for the main bread and butter, what is a CEng? So a CEng is a chartered engineer, and it is the highest designator that the IET can offer. When you see a CEng, it means that they have demonstrated a high level of competency, a high level of knowledge, they're experienced, they normally have some form of leadership position or role, maybe that's a manager or a senior, but they're in charge of a team. And what that basically says to you, just by the words of a CEng, means that they've adhered to strict rules, regulations and principles. It's also protected by UK law and regulations, the CEng title.
And got a lot of benefits, such as greater career prospects, higher influence within your company or business as a whole, the ability for higher networking capabilities, also eligibility for higher pay if you're moving companies or within the same company, as well as a high professional status as a CEng. However, there are other IET designations, such as a IEng, which is an incorporated engineer, a Eng Tech, which is an engineering technician, and a ICT Tech, which is a information communications and technology technician.
And all of those designations you can use on the road up to being your CEng. We're currently through the process of applying for our IEng designation because we don't quite hit all of the criteria for that CEng, but we can still go for an IEng designation and work our way into a CEng. So why is it ultimately, if you're hiring or if you're looking for a job, why ultimately is it important? Well, we have a quick case study here for an example. If you are a hiring engineering manager and you've got 2 applicants who your recruitment or your HR firm has narrowed down to, you've got applicant 1, which is a Masters of Engineering, first class, maybe from the University of Oxford. 3 years relevant experience. These are the top 1% of people. Many companies would love to get that type of person. You've actually got 2 applicants like that. The second applicant is exactly the same. We'll say that they've got the same name, they're the same person, but one of them's a CEng. Now, hopefully, by this point, you will know which one you probably would prefer or is mathematically more likely to get it. In this case, it's applicant 2 as the CEng, purely because although you've demonstrated you've got great academics, you've come from a very prestigious institution, and the fact that you've got relevant work experience, because you have that additional, the Engineering Council and the IET has looked at you and gone, well, actually, you've gone above and beyond. You've showcased additional factors. You're more likely to get it. In that rough estimate, it's about a 56% chance that applicant 2 would get the job over applicant 1. So how to become a CEng? There's primarily 3 characteristics and things that they look for. You have academic requirements, professional development and work-based experience. For academic requirements, that they state they would like to have either a standalone Masters of a level 7 or an integrated Masters at a level 7 with a supporting bachelor's, preferably in an engineering field. There is some give with that. That's what they would like to have, that's what they state to have, but there are some alternative routes. The UK academic system is not as simplistic as it used to be. There are some other options which we will discuss briefly later on. Another big thing that they are looking for is professional development. So for those who are unaware, professional development is where you do your job role, but you expand upon it. You may do things like online training courses, you may have to learn a new program, you may have to learn something to teach someone else. All of that counts as your professional development. The IET recommends 30 hours a year for your professional development. And normally a PDP, which is a professional development plan of how you plan to grow over the next several years. For both of our applications for the iEng, it was a 3-year provisional development plan.
And due to the strict criteria of becoming a CEng, a lot of experience requirements come alongside that. It's usually a minimum of 4 years industry experience that is required to be able to be eligible for a CEng, and it has to be within a relevant or senior engineering field where it requires heavy decision making, roles and responsibilities such as a senior engineer, design engineer, project engineer, or engineering managerial positioning, or engineering consultant, and also graduate engineers that have a progression plan built in that allow for IET apprenticeship at the end of it. This can also greatly benefit in the long term for your professional development when making this case study to the CEng.
So long gone are the days where the UK academic system was straightforward and simplistic. They've now tried to expand as much as they can. So to simplify that, there is a graph coming up on the screen. The x-axis going across represents your levels, and the y-axis up represents what type of learning that primarily goes over.
The first type of learning is work-based learning. This is the most practical and industry-focused type of learning out of the three. It always has a industry placement, allowing you to be hands-on and work with specific machinery or learn a specific skill set within that industry as a whole. Because of that, it's not typically marked as a conventional course, therefore it's usually based off of observational assessments, case discussions and feedback sessions.
Vocational learning, which is the one that we personally have spent the most amount of time in, has that practical emphasis on hands-on experience again. Doesn't often provide a workplace. It's normally up to the engineer or the student in question to go and pursue that, and is more focused on specialised training for a specific career. In our case, we did electrical electronic engineering, so we learnt most of this job-specific skills, but over a much wider scope than, for example, what a work-based learner would do. You primarily get your grades through projects, assignments and portfolios. Academic is what most people are familiar with and tends to be the one that most people spend their lives in. We all went to high school, you all did GCSEs, all of that is based off of academic learning. It shows more of being a critical thinker, independent, and a much greater emphasis on theoretical work. You might not learn as many practical skills, but you know a lot more of the theory behind those skills and what those things are doing. Obviously, placement year, if you're at university, they can offer an industrial placement year. If not, it's a case of, again, it's not predicted in the course, you may have to go and do it yourself. It's more to do with maximising your career prospects. If work-based learning is where you have a specific job skill, for example, being a welder, and you only learn about all the different types of welding, and vocational is you do welding, but you might do CNC manufacturing where the scope opens a little bit more, then academic learning is more of the very broad horizons. You can go on Indeed, for example, on job sites, and you can go and look for a job, and under the educational level they'll have selections of academics, and most of the time there is degree and master's degree levels. Most companies look at academics because it shows that you're independent, you're critical thinking, you're highly intelligent.
And one of the main benefits of this structure is talking about maximising opportunities and prospects, is that although you start at a particular learning type, so we all start at academic, you're not locked in for the foreseeable. Best example is myself and Jack, is that we started as academic learning, we moved to vocational because it was beneficial to both of us to work in the industry while also committing to our studies. However, as we've developed as a student and through our professional growth, we've come to the conclusion that actually transitioning back into academic learning may be the best fit for us and our professional growth as engineers. CATs you'll see them a lot when doing your studies, and you'll find them associated with different subjects. CATs are credit accumulation and transfer schemes, and are a direct metric when comparing the time required to the given subject. As an example, 1 CAT is equal to 10 hours of study. Therefore, if you're studying engineering mathematics, that is a total of 20 CATs, you're expected to do 200 hours of study. The main benefit of this is it goes up linearly. The higher the CATs rating, the more knowledge that the individual will be able to obtain and display by the end of the subject course.
So it should be stated that because the CEng and the IET therefore is about 540 hours, which is 5,400 hours, which is the time for a master's and a bachelor's, it should be noted that that is give or take. There are certain things that you can do if you've worked, for example, for the industry for 30 years, but you've academically only worked or done academics for 3 years, they will make an exception for that rule. But the things like the CATs are quite an easily distinguishable section of, well, what do I have, what do I not have, what might they look for, what might they pick you up on. Throughout your professional development, one of those two types of professional development, one of them is work-based and one of them is academic. Your work-based professional development is effectively your historic, what you've done, where you've been, what your current work is, and what your future place of work or any future types of things you could have. One of the things that my company looks for is what's known as IPC, which stands for the Institute of Printed Circuits, of which there are two main types. There are CIT, CSC and CIS, all of which I'm hoping to do in the next 3 to 4 years. That's part of my PDP, and when I've done my application to the IET, those are the main things that I've shown.
However, it should be stated that even throughout your studies, you may do subjects and courses that will then help with your professional development, such as when we were doing subject courses last year, we did packet trace and we got integrated badges with that. That also goes within your professional development, although it might not be in your current subject field at the time.
So the second type of professional development is academic based. Now most people, if you go and learn something, will get taught X amount. So if you get taught, for example, if you're doing computer aided design, and for example you have to do a project, your lecturer will teach you X amount of content to go and do a report or create a design. Now the thing is they might not teach you everything that you need to do in order to create that 3D representation of that model. So you naturally will go and study it yourself. And that is a form of professional development in the academic world. So up on the screen is a rough display of a very basic PDP, professional development plan for them. And it's things of, what did you have to do? Did you do it yourself? What did you achieve your deadline for? Who ultimately was responsible for it? And what did you need to do it?
And the subject line of CAD, when looking at what counts as professional development, last year we did a subject called product design, which is quite self-explanatory. You create a product and then you sell it as a green light pitch to a client or clientele. Within that subject, I thought the best means to be able to sell a product is to visualise it to the said personnel. Therefore, I had to then go away and learn how to use CAD software to be able to build an AUV, automated underwater vehicle system, to be able to then display it to a clientele. With that, I gained huge professional growth that will then set me aside from other electrical and electronic engineers. However, professional development doesn't have to be highly sophisticated or linked to a career path or an industry. It could also be general projects that you've built. It could be reports, it could be networking, it could be training courses that you've been part of either in work or through college, university and college subjects.
So up on the screen is just a very basic case study of what you can see. And this is kind of more or less what the IET sort of looks for. They want to see that journey of how you've gained your credentials. Now everyone's is different. Some people don't have the academics but have a lot more in the work progression. Some people have huge amounts in the development progression. The IET takes all of that into consideration when you do your application. In our case, we can showcase we've gone from a level 3 to a level 7. I've worked my way up from a junior position into a senior position, and I've become specialised in specific things relative to my field.
And mine's very similar to Jack, working from a level 3 to a level 7 qualification, going from a base engineering position to a senior level engineering position, that in a specialised profession, that then meets the criteria to the CEng criteria.
There are some major benefits to working while studying. Some of the main ones include, obviously, you get to develop what's known as working knowledge. Now, I've had experience, and I imagine some of you have as well, where you've gone to a site where you've met someone who's very, very smart, who can tell you all about three-phase and they can tell you all about this, but you give them a multimeter and they don't know how to use it. And I've lost track of how many times I've had and I've met people and that's happened. One of the other great things is it lets you hone and refine your skill set, so you can take all your academics, you can apply them directly into the industry day one. Another major aspect, and this is great for us as a reference, is career clarity. So we've studied exactly the same things, and we're both in the same sector of manufacturing. Jack is in more food processing, I'm in more PCB manufacturing. I did mechanical earlier on in my career. I didn't like mechanical. I do like electronics though, which is why I'm more specialised in it. Another major thing is personal growth. When you're younger, you're shyer, you're not that confident, you know, you go out into the industry, you met people, you have to talk to people you don't know, you have to work and problem solve, you have to build up as a team, you have to develop all your communication skills. Another great one is network building. If you have a LinkedIn, for example, you can meet with all the people that you know, you can keep in contact with them, and maybe even many years down the line, you might come back to them. My father was an engineer, and he went to a job interview 22 years after he started his career, and the guy interviewing was someone who used to work at, when he worked at Ricardo's in Shoreham. It's a very small world nowadays. And the most important thing is you get paid money. It's the best one.
Although there are many benefits of working while studying, many of which that myself and Jack have experienced, there are unfortunately some negatives alongside it. The main one of which is being it's stressful, or it can be. It's as stressful as you make it to be. Unfortunately, you've got to prioritise both academia and academics as well as your work and your responsibilities surrounding that. And that can change depending on shifts with your work and jobs, if it's a high consumer demand rate during seasonal changes, or academia when you reach January and February, or the end of the year when there's assignment deadlines or exam seasons. Also, while working in industry, from both sides, from an academic and from a industry placement, expectations are very high. When you go from the academics, already being from the industry, there's a high expectation that you have a lot more experience, a lot more working knowledge within these current fields than others people that are just going through academia naturally. This was evident when we did a major team project this year. On the first lesson we walked through, and one of the lecturers came up to me and said, "I've heard about you." As daunting as that was, obviously, because I work in industry, there was a lot of discussion around my previous projects from my bachelor's, as well as the skill set and the knowledge that I bring forth from my industry to academics, which can sometimes be a bit unconventional if you're just going through. How to get work? Work, it can be very difficult early stages, as you don't have much experience. However, through means of networking, through LinkedIn, Glassdoor, or Indeed, also going to local businesses, it can be quite feasible getting work experience opportunities. I was able to get ETI for 2 weeks as a work placement due to me talking to my careers advisor team at my college. Equally so, I reached out to the company Nature's Way Foods when I wanted an industry placement, and I was very fortunate at the time that they were very keen on the idea. There are numerous avenues to get work experience, but unfortunately sometimes it does take that little bit extra diligence to be able to get there in the end.
Now the next few slides are a little bit subjective, because obviously there are things such as how many days a week do you have to attend a lecture, how many days of work, what type of work schedule you have. Your place of work may be open 24/7, 365 days a year. They might be closed on the weekends. So on the board is an average of what I personally have had over the last 4 to 5 years. Anything in orange represents independent study or spare time. Anything in blue is when you had to attend either college or university, and everything in green is mainly when I was at work. So at the moment, doing my masters, which is the bottom right hand side, Monday to Friday is pretty busy, but all of the evenings and Saturday and Sundays are pretty open for doing studying and revision for.
Unfortunately, when you go into that industry, you'll find different working shift patterns and schedules. I don't work a regular conventional admin hour shift pattern. I work a Panama rotating shift, which both has its benefits and its downsides. That can easily be seen when comparing my current masters, where I've got a few days that I'm able to prepare my reports and projects, when in comparison to my Bachelor's of Science last year, where it was 7 days straight on my long week. But thankfully on my short week I did get a bit more leeway, but it goes to show on a given week how much workload and how much you've got to prioritise and almost strategise your time accordingly based off of your work and your academic studies.
And that brings the main bulk of the presentation to an end. Is there any questions at all?
Yes, first of all, thank you very much, both of you, for a very interesting and excellent way of comparing the different routes. That was it was nice to see. But then I've got a question for each of you. First of all, you made a comment about an apprenticeship. You sort of said it was a sort of apprenticeship.
Yep.
Could you elaborate on that?
Yep.
I imagine it obviously wasn't a formal apprenticeship, but it was an actual apprenticeship. Is that right?
Yes, so some companies do offer graduate jobs where recent graduate engineers are able to apply for the job, and if it's from a bachelor's degree onwards, they do offer progression plans in place, such as progression plan to a master's or further development for that individual's career and skill set, and in that might detail a accreditation scheme for the IET.
Yes, but why did you use the word apprenticeship?
Good point.
But,
However, yeah.
I don't object to it.
No, because
at all.
because when you go from accreditation scheme, same as where I've been in the industry, I've been very fortunate, although I'm in study, it takes a long while before you're rid of that stigma. Although it might be a full working structure, work placement, you'll be treated as an engineer, you'll be doing the same roles and responsibilities as an engineer, you'll be getting additional feedback exercises that vocational would use, such as observations and feedback sessions, to assist you in that progression plan. Therefore, you've got some form of mentorship that you wouldn't get as a regular engineer.
A mentor is a sort of, whatever the person is who controls.
Yes.
But so that
It's a mentorship scheme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had a mentor, did you?
Yes.
Yes.
Sort of, yeah.
Okay. That was very interesting. A question for you.
Yep.
Was that a flow solder machine that I saw?
It was in which picture would be the question I'd have to show you.
Machine.
It was a pick and place machine, so I believe you're referring to probably one of the introductory slides, or one of the ones on the company overview. So that was of a production line. So you go from an AOI into a pick and place machine into an I-pulse oven.
Okay, because that is a very specialist technology. It really is for
Yes.
PCB making, and it looks as though the business model is having lots of customers, and how do you how that pick and place technique or whatever you use for your did you use pick and place on the boards for every customer?
It depends on what the customer specification is. We offer conventional, which is done by hand, obviously, or you've got SMT, which is done through machinery. So it is subjective based on the customer demand. I'd probably say 80 to 85% of customers we do use the surface mount for, so we do use pick and place machines on the production line. Obviously, as technology goes forward, everyone wants some smaller, cheaper SMTs becoming more and more apparent.
Does it depend? I think you've answered the question, but it presumably depends a bit on batch size, because it's not worth using a pick and place machine on small batches, is it? So would you do those by hand?
We would normally do by hand. If not, we have what's called a vapor phase machine. So we use them for smaller, more contained batches, where rather than having it through an oven, it's an awful thing. You have to place it by hand. It's still SMT parts. You put it through a vapor phase, which uses obviously the fumes to solder it and combine it as well. It's time consuming, but it's actually quicker in operation to that of a standard conventional or the SMT run.
Okay.
So it depends on the volume of what they order. If we get a biscuit with, say, 6 boards in it, we probably would not run it through SMT, because by the time you load it, unload it, program it, set the curve, it's just too much time at that point.
Final question for both of you. How much of what you've done was learning on the job?
A good 75 to 80% of it. A lot of the specialty was academia, 100%, whereas my kind of thought processes, how I conduct myself and how I fault find and go about engineering technique, a lot of it is work experience.
I'd probably go slightly low. I'd say 60%. Obviously, when I'd probably go with 60% for mine. Is more work-based learning on the job. Obviously, when I deal with a lot of customers, it's more for my academic knowledge, because a lot of the in-house customers don't have some with a bachelor's degree in electrical electronics. But for most of the daily production, manufacturing especially, and quality, it's all about what you learn actually there rather than being taught.
now that you've experienced what you have, and discovered that universities perhaps aren't quite as scary as you first thought they might be, if you were back at the beginning, would you still choose this route rather than the university route and then going into industry?
Probably not, due to I very much value what I have learnt in the industry. And I don't think I'll be half the engineer I currently am now without being there in the industry and being mentored by people that I've been mentored and pushed by people I've been pushed to learn different skill sets.
I might dispute that. I probably would make one change, which is we did our H&C into a H&D into our bachelor's. If we'd have done a H&C and gone straight to university, we would have finished our master's last year rather than our bachelor's. We've taken an extra year. Now, obviously, the benefit of that is that we have got an extra year of academics. We're more versatile in other units. But like you said, for heading towards the masters and C-Eng, we technically not wasted a year, but we're a year down to potentially what we could be. I wouldn't change much else, though. One of the great things about the vocational is that it's a lot cheaper. And when, like you said, you're in work, but you don't quite know exactly, do we do the next one, do we not? Cost is a bit of a huge element, especially if you're working part-time or trying to study full-time type of thing as well.
I've got several questions, but I'll let the others ask as well. But coming on from the question asked from Mike and David, in terms of your learning and your experience, for example, for the BSc that you had last year, did you find that you could understand a lot more what the academic subjects were compared to your fellow students who are right next to you who had no industrial experience? Have you noticed the difference?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I did.
Yes.
Yeah. When we sat analog electronics and communications last year, obviously we went over how to make logic gates from transistors, and we went over the Class AV amplifiers, and we sat the exam first week of June, sorry. And I'm not joking, 2 weeks later I had a PIC that was malfunctioning at work that when I looked at the technical specification on the internal circuit was using NAND gates as transistors as NAND gates and had a Class AV amplifier. And I was just and went, oh, well, that makes my life significantly easier because I know exactly what that is. So I would say yes, you normally do notice, and it's worthwhile, but yeah.
I've had similar experiences where you're learning communication systems, which are systems I haven't fully developed throughout my academic career. And you go to a machine and you've got someone putting an IP address and a subnet mask, but not knowing what they are or why they're putting in the numbers that they are. Similarly, you go to another machine, you'll see baud rate on a labelling machine. All of a sudden you can make immediate parallels from academia and industry, which greatly adds additional value to what you are learning. Similarly with some of the lessons with product design and engineering management currently, I'm able to take all the taught values and lessons given by lecturer Dr. Cliff Danso and immediately put them into my work as I'm getting promoted to a project engineer in terms of how I budget the projects, how I timetable them, schedule them in a way that's advantageous, and amongst other things as well. So the ability to be able to immediately go from academia and then transfer it straight into industry, as I said, adds that additional value that is beneficial.
And then from another point of view, because we're looking at how young students go after leaving A-levels, 18, graduating at 21. Because as your lecturer, I noticed that you guys had a different approach. But when you notice your other colleagues around you, or your fellow students, did you find that they were floundering, whereas compared to you guys, and you had the work experience you had before, that it made more sense?
We definitely, I think, acted better under pressure. There was many instances where it's like a week or two before assignments or exams, you could see them panicking, and we were much sort of calmer and going, well, we've gone through worse, so we can survive this. But it's, I think, also down to work ethic and just personality traits as well.
Yeah.
It comes to what David asked, if you were to do it again, it looks like you would still go through your route because you seem to have gained a lot more from that experience, even though it was hard.
And it took a long time. I mean, like you said, two years to do your A-levels and 3 years at university, you're finished with a bachelor's by 5. And I know we're doing a master's now, but we finished our bachelor's at 7. So it's taken us another 2 years longer to do. I think, like I said, we'd argue it was for the better, but there was that negative to it.
Okay.
So, is there there's that emphasis on the academic. If, like myself, you've got 30 years experience in industry only, without the bachelor's degree to even start with, yet you've been through hell and back in industry over the years, basically. How can I transfer that into a CEng? I mean, what steps do I need to take to do that?
Yep, so when you go through the application process, it is very similar, almost like filling out sort of like a job application. Obviously you have your personal details, you have your work experience, they'll ask your academic, but one of the things they're quite keen on is when you're doing your roles and responsibilities to use STARS, which is where you're given a really in-depth specific application of what tasks, you know, the actually and the accreditation in which you used to do it for, and they really do focus on that. And the thing is with the academic question in question is it's not necessarily a case of because you've studied this you get this. Some courses, for example, are what are called IET accredited, so that they tick certain tick boxes from that qualification. So our Masters we're doing this year is IET accredited, but the Bachelor's we did last year isn't. So, for example, when we're doing our IEng application, when they've gone through that, they've gone, oh, you've ticked some criteria for this, but not for this. Now, we do have a Bachelor's which meets the requirement, but there are specific things that they look for. So when you apply, they basically give you a matrix, which is basically like a tick box, and it goes 1 to 4. And the idea is if you can showcase that you have got the relevant experience and qualifications, even if it's not academic, they will still accept that for you. So it's not 100% reliant on the academics. They prefer it.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for that. I think it's very good to have shown how you can become a member of the IET, because there's also something called the mature candidate route. So it's not just the standard route of going to a degree and everything else. And as Jack has already mentioned, it's all criteria based really. And if you can match up what you've done already, they will listen. And the best way to do it is to contact the membership advisor, go on the IET website, and there'll be someone there who can talk you through it.
Yeah, because the application process so far has been quite good. It is very similar just to filling in a job interview. It's basically, if you've got your CV at hand, you can get through it reasonably quickly. Obviously, you have to be a bit more specific. In a CV, you simplify, and this they want you to expand a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked myself for like 20 years now. So
They want the 20 years.
Yep.
yeah.
But like I said, if you've got all of that experience, they will overlook some of the academic. So for example, one of the things that they look for in CEng control is leadership. Have you been a manager or a senior position or looked after people? You gave an example in the STARS of how you did it and how many you did. That ticks that box on that CEng criteria. So if you do, like example, we do engineering management as part of our Masters, that ticks off that CEng box, but because you've gone and done it in the industry and you can provide a reference for it, that also ticks off the same box. Any other questions at all?
Okay.
No?
Just a further comment, since Dashinder has quite rightly advertised what he does, I'll declare my affiliation. I'm ex-University of Surrey, but I still teach on Masters short courses. Short courses take a week, and there's a selection of 8 or 9 or 10 or of them, I can't remember. I still teach on 4 of them, and within a week you can actually take a module, and if you get 6 modules and then you do a project, then you can get an MSc. Okay, so that's yet another route which probably, you know, it's not quite as pertinent that, but it might be of interest. Might be of interest to you. And each module, so you better save your pennies. Each module, week's module, costs you 1,500 quid. Okay.
Same as a commercial training course, really, which I don't know.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are short courses. We looked at, I think it was in Oxford, there was a level 6 MVQ qualification, which obviously is bachelor's level equivalent. It was over in 3 months. It was very high intensity for 3 months, but we did look down that route as well.
Slide for the next lecture.
Yeah.
You had a question or a comment?
Well, it wasn't really a question, it was a comment really. I was you were obviously both very focused on what you're doing, and that's very impressive. I did an apprenticeship and probably a formal apprenticeship in electronics and stuff.
Is that frozen?
looking at all the colleges there, pretty similar sort of thing really. And I didn't really come across the IET until I was about 35, so it was a bit sort of late in the day really. But yes, I've certainly not got as well as you guys have. I fell by the wayside a bit further on, but agency and stuff like that, which I did find quite hard going really with the college and the working as well. Because obviously when I finished my apprenticeship and everything, I was expected to just work, and then it sort of took over really. It was struggling with the college bit, but if I'd have realised that there was something like the IET around at the time, it could have helped.
Do you want your PowerPoint shot into your memory stick?
Great. I only come once I changed jobs.
Yeah, and it's the horrible thing in
It would
that.
be really good if there had been some other younger people looking at what you've done. Great sort of,
And that's one of the things, is that we didn't know about the IET really until we went to university. But my dad, when I said, I'd become an IET, he said, you know what? And he's been in the industry 50 odd years at some points. And my granddad as well was an engineer as well. And they all looked at me like I was mad. I was talking about something they just didn't know. And it is that shame that there isn't that, which is why we were hoping there would have been some students we could really sort of get it into them. But it is what it is. But so, well, thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was very, very informative about an alternative route, and this is available as a video as well. We'll make sure the students at Worthing College will be able to get access to that and find out. But it looks like it's been interesting for others as well. You see that it's not too late to be a member of the IET, and there are many different routes. It's not just a standard route of a degree, masters and things like that. And you can get a master's through Surrey. You pay £1,500 per module. But there's of course the Open University as well, and I'm a tutor on that as well, you can go through that route as well. But thank you very much. I'd like to just let you know that for which I should have mentioned at the beginning, the next session is at Crawley College, and it's to be announced as to what it's going to be. And the next one here at Worthing College is on Tuesday the 10th of February, about AI, large language models.
Can I just make a comment? On the website, we already have a list of upcoming talks, and there are a few TBAs to be sorted out on that already. We think we've got something for
January
13th.
Okay.
So we'll also, if you put the dates of that list, or a new short list which we're discussing, which go, put the dates in your diary now. It's a good time to get them into next year's diary. So everybody look on the website and plan your next year dates, put them in your diary, and then you know, we very rarely have to cancel a meeting. We do actually put something on every meeting. Thank you for allowing me to advertise the IET Sussex.
Okay. And we have something here from the IET on behalf of David, of each one of you. An honorary pen.
Okay.
And a certificate. And one for you. We need to sign it, I think, later on.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Mike will sign it later on.
Yeah, nice.
So Jack Elliott.
Okay.
Jack Petit.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
So we'll get this signed after. Don't go
Cheers.
without getting it signed from Mike.
Yeah, there is.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.